Welcome to Pulse of the Planet. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In a decision that sent shockwaves from Wall Street rippling through the corridors of power and commerce to China's industrial heartlands, the United States Supreme Court today delivered a monumental ruling that will be remembered for years to come. The court struck down the sweeping tariffs enacted by President Donald Trump under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, a move that has been both highly anticipated and hotly debated. This decision, announced on September 12, 2025, dismantles a core pillar of the Trump administration's economic and foreign policy, which had aimed to leverage tariffs as a tool for international negotiation and economic protectionism. It marks a historic rebalancing of power between the President and Congress, reaffirming the checks and balances that are fundamental to the U.S. Constitution. The reverberations were felt instantly across global markets, which surged with cautious optimism, reflecting a renewed confidence in the stability of international trade relations. For years, these tariffs have reshaped supply chains, fueled inflation, and strained diplomatic ties, creating a complex web of economic challenges and uncertainties. Now, the world holds its breath, wondering if this signals a new era for global trade, one that could potentially lead to more cooperative and less adversarial international economic policies. At its heart, the case questioned the very limits of presidential authority, challenging the extent to which a president can unilaterally impose economic measures without legislative approval. Can a president use a decades-old emergency law to impose taxes on the American people without the explicit consent of Congress? This was the crux of the legal battle. The court's answer, a firm and resounding no, setting a precedent that will likely influence future administrations. For countless businesses, from small importers who have struggled with increased costs, to major manufacturers who have faced disrupted supply chains, today feels like a long-awaited reprieve, a chance to rebuild and move forward with greater certainty. To understand the gravity of today's decision, we need to trace the roots of America's modern trade battles and the legal tools that made them possible. The story of the tariff wars is one of shifting priorities, political maneuvering, and the ever-present tension between free trade and protectionism. To see how we arrived at this moment, we must look back at the pivotal choices and events that shaped U.S. trade policy over the past decades. President Trump, citing national emergencies, used the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, as his primary legal justification for sweeping trade actions. This marked a dramatic shift in how presidents could wield economic power. The IEEPA was originally designed to let a president regulate international commerce during a declared emergency. Think hostage crises, acts of terrorism, or threats of war. It was a tool meant for rare, extraordinary situations, not for routine economic disputes. But it had never before been used to grant the power to impose broad, unilateral tariffs on trading partners. This unprecedented move set off alarm bells among legal scholars and lawmakers alike, who questioned whether the law was being stretched beyond its original intent. The tariffs quickly became a cornerstone of the Trump administration's America First agenda. They were promoted as a way to protect U.S. industries, revive American manufacturing, and pressure other nations to negotiate fairer trade deals. The so-called Liberation Day tariffs, announced in April 2025, targeted a vast array of consumer goods, from electronics to clothing, impacting everyday Americans and businesses alike. More recently, new tariffs were imposed on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada, officially to combat the flow of fentanyl and other illicit substances. These measures were justified as necessary for national security, but their economic impact was far-reaching. Critics argued these tariffs were less about security and more about using protectionist tools to raise federal revenue and gain leverage in tough trade negotiations. The debate over their true purpose only intensified as the economic consequences became clear. This aggressive strategy sparked a global trade war, sending shockwaves through international markets and affecting everything from steel and soybeans to consumer prices and global supply chains. Today, the Supreme Court delivered its verdict. In a 6-3 decision, the court struck down the tariffs imposed under IEEPA. The majority opinion, authored by Chief Justice John Roberts, was a forceful defense of the separation of powers. The court found that IEEPA does not provide the clear congressional authorization required for a president to impose taxes. The ruling leaned heavily on the major questions doctrine, requiring explicit permission from Congress for actions of vast economic significance. The justices made it clear, if Congress wants to grant such expansive tariff authority, it must do so with unmistakable clarity. The Supreme Court's decision has thrown a complex and expensive problem back into the lap of the federal government. What to do about the money? According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, $210 billion has already been collected this fiscal year from the now illegal tariffs. Had they remained, that figure could have swelled to nearly $1 trillion. Now, importers are asking how and when they'll get their money back. Trade law experts say automatic full refunds are unlikely. The government will likely establish an administrative process, requiring importers to file claims and provide documentation. This could be lengthy and burdensome, especially for smaller companies. For many, the delay in reimbursement could create significant cash flow problems. The Supreme Court's decision is sending powerful ripples across the American economy. For sectors relying on imported components, electronics, automotive, retail, today's news is a cause for celebration. The removal of tariffs offers immediate cost relief, potentially boosting profitability and competitiveness. However, for industries the tariffs were designed to protect, like steel and aluminum, the outlook is less rosy. These companies now face renewed competition from cheaper foreign imports. Industry groups warn that the sudden removal of trade barriers could lead to plant closures and job losses. The U.S. economy is already showing signs of weakness, with only 22,000 new jobs added last month. Tariff-sensitive sectors like manufacturing have been shedding jobs, a trend that could accelerate. The impact will be uneven, with winners and losers across the economic landscape. For the average American family, the most tangible effect of the tariff wars has been felt at the checkout counter. The tariffs acted as a tax on imported goods, steadily passed down to consumers. Everything from washing machines to electronics saw price hikes directly linked to these trade policies. The Supreme Court's decision offers hope for relief from this upward pressure on prices. In theory, removing tariffs should lower prices for a wide range of goods. However, the process may not be immediate. Many businesses still hold inventory imported under the old tariffs. It will take time for new, tariff-free products to reach store shelves. Some companies may also choose to pocket the savings rather than lower prices right away. Still, the ruling is a step toward easing inflation for American households. The Trump administration's tariffs were as much a tool of foreign policy as economic policy, straining relationships with allies and adversaries alike. Countries like Canada, Mexico, and key European allies found themselves targeted, leading to frustration and eroded trust in the U.S. as a reliable partner. Today's Supreme Court decision could mark a turning point in these strained diplomatic relationships. International partners have reacted with cautious relief, welcoming the ruling as a victory for rules-based trade. The hope is that this decision will clear the way for lifting retaliatory tariffs imposed on American goods. This could reopen critical markets for U.S. exporters, especially in agriculture and manufacturing. The process of mending fences with America's closest allies will take time, but the ruling offers a chance to rebuild global trust. Beyond the immediate economic and diplomatic consequences, today's Supreme Court ruling carries profound implications for the balance of power within the U.S. government. At its core, this case was a major test of presidential authority, and the court's decision is a significant check on the executive branch. By ruling that the president cannot use IEPA to impose broad tariffs without explicit congressional approval, the court reasserts Congress's constitutional authority. The decision is a major victory for proponents of the major questions doctrine, which requires clear authorization from Congress for policies of vast significance. The ruling will likely be cited for decades in legal battles over executive power. It signals the court's skepticism toward broad claims of executive authority, regardless of party. Today's Supreme Court decision is more than just the end of a legal battle. It's a turning point that will be studied for years to come. The eyes of the nation and the world are watching as the highest court in the land redefines the boundaries of presidential power. The striking down of President Trump's tariffs under IEPA is a landmark event with far-reaching consequences for businesses, consumers, and international relations. This decision sends shockwaves through global markets, as trading partners and investors reassess their strategies in light of a new legal landscape. For many, it signals a shift in how America will engage with the world economy. The ruling provides relief for those burdened by rising costs, offering hope to families struggling with higher prices at the checkout line. Yet, it also creates new uncertainty for industries once protected by trade barriers, forcing companies and workers to adapt quickly to a more competitive environment. The ripple effects will be felt in communities across the country, from small towns to major cities. It's a powerful reaffirmation of the separation of powers, a core principle of American democracy. By upholding the Constitution, the court reminds us that no branch of government stands above the law, and that the balance of power is essential to our freedom. The court has drawn a clear line. Matters of vast economic importance, like the power to tax and regulate commerce, belong with Congress. This decision reasserts the role of lawmakers in shaping the nation's economic destiny, and challenges them to act with responsibility and vision. This constitutional rebuke of executive overreach will influence the dynamic between the White House and Congress for a generation. It sets a precedent that will guide future leaders, reminding them that the rule of law is the foundation of American governance. Even in an era of deep division, the fundamental checks and balances of the U.S. system endure. This moment stands as a testament to the resilience of American democracy, and to the ongoing promise that government of the people, by the people and for the people shall not perish from the earth.